"I only have $3. Let me wash at your ranch, cowboy," said the dusty Apache woman. The early morning sun had barely risen over the desert horizon, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and pink. A thin layer of dust floated in the warm breeze, settling gently on the dry earth. The ranch was quiet, except for the occasional whinny of a horse and the distant sound of a crow calling from a lone cactus. The rancher, a rugged man in his late 40s, moved steadily along the fence line, checking for broken wires and loose posts. He had worked this land for more than 20 years, and every corner of the ranch spoke to him. The worn saddles, the soft hay, and even the stubborn horses that required patience and care. From the far side of the dusty road a figure appeared, walking slowly but with determination. She was covered in dust from head to toe. Her hair, once dark, now looked like strands of gray-brown because of the fine sand clinging to it. Her clothes were worn and patched, the fabric frayed from long travels under the sun. In her hand she held a small weathered bag, and in her pocket she clutched the last $3 she had. She was tired, hungry, and yet she walked with her head held high. She was a woman of strength, though life had thrown many hardships her way. The rancher noticed her almost immediately. He had seen travelers before, people who wandered through the desert seeking work or refuge. Some stayed for a while, some passed through, and a few never made it past the first day. He stopped his work for a moment and watched as she approached the gate. There was something in her gait, a mix of exhaustion and determination, that caught his attention. He adjusted his hat to shield his eyes from the rising sun and studied her closely. "Good morning," she called, her voice soft but steady. I only have $3, but I'll do any work you need." "Please, let me wash stables or feed the horses. Anything. I just need to earn a little food and a place to rest." The rancher paused, unsure how to respond. He wasn't unkind, but he had learned long ago to be careful about strangers. Life in the desert could be unforgiving, and trust had to be earned, not given freely. Yet as he looked at her, he saw something he rarely saw in people who arrived at his ranch asking for help. Honesty. She wasn't exaggerating her situation or asking for handouts without offering something in return. She was offering herself in service, willing to work hard for survival. "You have $3?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "And you've come all this way with nothing else?" "Yes," she said, dusting off her sleeves. Her eyes were steady, meeting his without fear. "I don't have much. My home, it's gone. I lost everything to a fire. I've been traveling ever since, trying to find work." "Please, I'll do anything." The rancher studied her for a moment, weighing the decision. He could see the exhaustion on her face, the calluses on her hands, and the faint bruises on her arms. Life had been hard for her, but she was still standing. That was something. Finally, he nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "I can give you a chance."
"You can start with the stables. Clean them, feed the horses, and make sure everything is in order."
"If you can handle that, we'll see about other work." Relief washed over her face, though she kept her composure. She nodded quickly. "Thank you, sir." "I won't let you down." He handed her a bucket, gloves, and a pitchfork. She took them carefully, holding each tool as if it were a lifeline. The rancher walked away, returning to his own tasks, but he kept an eye on her from a distance. He had learned over the years that the first day was the hardest for anyone new.
The desert sun could wear down even the strongest people, and the work was demanding.
But she didn't complain. She simply got to work, moving with steady determination. She began by cleaning the stables. The horses were curious, sniffing at her hands and watching her movements carefully. Bang. She spoke to them softly, introducing herself as she cleaned, feeding them small portions of hay and making sure the water buckets were full. Her movements were careful and deliberate, showing a respect for the animals and the land. It wasn't just physical labor. It was care, and the horses responded to it. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher in the sky. Sweat ran down her face, mixing with the dust and dirt that clung to her skin. Her muscles ached, but she didn't stop. Every stall she cleaned, every horse she tended, reminded her that she was capable, that she could survive another day. She glanced at the rancher occasionally, who watched silently from a distance. Brr.
There was no scolding or hovering, just observation, and that gave her confidence. By midday, she had finished the chores assigned to her.
The rancher approached, wiping his hands on a rag. He looked at her with a mixture of surprise and approval. "You've done well," he said simply. "Not everyone could handle this work on their first day."
Thank you, sir. I've had to work hard before, and I know the value of every task. I'm just glad to have a chance to help.
The rancher nodded. "You'll need more than just willingness. The desert sun is strong, the work is hard, and there's no room for mistakes."
Are you sure you can keep up?
She straightened, her voice firm.
I can.
Despair.
I have to. I don't have a choice.
The day continued with more tasks, mending fences, hauling water, and helping with feeding the livestock. The rancher observed quietly, sometimes offering advice or demonstrating a better way to do a task. She listened attentively, learning quickly and adapting to the rhythm of the ranch. Her determination was evident, and even the older ranch hands, who were initially skeptical, began to acknowledge her effort with nods or brief words of encouragement. During a short break, she sat on a wooden crate under the shade of a tree. She took a small sip of water, feeling the sun's heat on her skin. The rancher approached and offered her a sandwich from his own lunch. She hesitated for a moment, but then accepted, grateful for the kindness. They didn't speak much, but the silence was comfortable, filled with mutual respect rather than words. "You came a long way for just $3, the rancher said casually, watching her eat. "What made you keep going?" She looked out over the ranch, her eyes reflecting both wariness and resolve. "I've lost everything before," she said quietly. "My home, my family. I've been forced to start over more times than I can count. I can't stop now. I have to keep moving, keep surviving. Even if it's hard, even if I have almost nothing, I have to try." Her words had weight.
The rancher nodded slowly, recognizing the truth in them. There was a strength in her that went beyond physical labor.
It was resilience, courage, and determination. It was rare to see someone who refused to be defeated, no matter the circumstances. As the day wore on, the sun began its descent, casting long shadows over the ranch. The work was done, and the animals were settled for the evening. She had proven herself not just as a helper, but as someone who could endure hardship without complaint. The rancher walked over, studying her with a thoughtful expression. "You did good today," he said. "Come back tomorrow, and we'll see if this is something you want to continue. If you do, there may be more work for you, and a place to rest at night." Relief and gratitude flooded her. She nodded, trying to keep her voice steady. I won't let you down, Bay.
That night, as she settled into the small corner of the barn where the rancher had allowed her to rest, she felt a rare sense of peace. The dust of the road still clung to her skin and her muscles ached from the day's labor, but she was no longer alone.
Bay. She had found a temporary safe place, and perhaps, just perhaps, a chance to rebuild. The rancher watched from a distance, thoughtful. Pit. He had seen many travelers come and go, but something about this woman was different. Pit. She wasn't asking for charity. She was offering herself in work, in honesty, in determination. And in a world where survival was hard and trust was scarce, that was worth noticing. Bye. As the desert sky darkened and the stars began to twinkle, the rancher returned to his own home, leaving her to rest. She lay on the hay, listening to the soft breathing of the horses and the faint rustle of the wind. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel hope. She had survived the day, and tomorrow was another chance. Another chance to prove herself. Another chance to earn a place in a world that had been unkind, yet still held pockets of kindness. And so, with the quiet determination that had carried her this far, she closed her eyes, ready to face whatever came next. She only had $3 and a small bag, but she had something far more valuable: courage, resilience, and the will to keep moving forward no matter how dusty and hard the road might be. The next morning the sun rose early over the wide-open desert, spilling warm golden light over the ranch. The Apache woman woke before dawn, stretching her sore muscles from the previous day. Her body ached in places she didn't even know could ache, but she didn't complain. She had learned a long time ago that complaining wasted energy. Instead, she took a deep breath of the crisp morning air and began her day. She had a purpose now, a reason to keep moving, and that made every ache worth it. The rancher was already outside, inspecting the fences and feeding the horses. He noticed her approaching with a small bucket in her hand. She nodded politely but didn't speak until she reached him. "Good morning," she said softly. "I'm ready to start." The rancher studied her for a moment. "You're eager. That's good.
Today will be harder than yesterday. The chores pile up and it gets hotter by midday."
"I can handle it," she replied firmly. "I have to." He nodded and handed her a list of tasks for the day. She would start by cleaning the horse stalls again, but today she would also help mend a section of the fence that had been damaged during a recent windstorm. After that, she would assist in preparing feed for the livestock.
It sounded like a lot, and it was, but she was ready. She moved through the stables with practiced care.
Each horse watched her with curious eyes, some snorting softly or flicking their tails. She spoke to them gently as she worked, telling them when she was coming in or placing hay in their troughs. It was more than just work. It was a conversation, a bond forming between her and the animals. She could feel their trust slowly growing, and in turn, it gave her a sense of accomplishment. By mid-morning, the sun was high and the heat was beginning to burn down on the ranch. Her arms were covered in sweat, her hands scraped and rough from hauling hay and scrubbing the stables. Despite that, she continued moving, one task at a time, focusing on what needed to be done. The rancher walked by occasionally, observing quietly. He didn't offer much advice, only stepping in when absolutely necessary. He wanted to see if she could handle the work on her own. And she did. While she worked, other ranch hands began to notice her presence. At first, they were skeptical. Some whispered to each other, questioning whether this dusty stranger could last more than a few hours in the harsh desert sun. Others, though, were intrigued. There was something different about her.
She wasn't loud or boastful.
She didn't complain about the heat or the heavy labor. She simply did the work steadily and efficiently. When it was time to mend the fence, she picked up the tools the rancher handed her. Hammering nails into worn wood and replacing broken posts, she realized that the work required both strength and patience. She measured carefully, struck the nails with precision, and worked until each section of the fence was secure. The rancher nodded in approval when he checked her work.
Not bad, he said simply. Most people would have rushed and left it uneven.
You took your time. That's important. She smiled faintly. Thank you, sir. I want it done right. It's not just your ranch. It's the animals' home, too. They deserve care. The rancher didn't respond with words. He simply continued observing, a thoughtful look on his face. He had met many people who said they cared about the animals, but few actually showed it through action. She did, and that was rare. After the fence, she moved on to feeding the livestock. She measured grains carefully, poured water into buckets, and made sure every animal had something to eat. The work was exhausting, yet she didn't stop. Even the smallest tasks were done with care, showing a respect for life that the rancher quietly admired. As the day wore on, she took a brief moment under the shade of a tree to rest. Her shirt clung to her back with sweat, and her hands were blistered from handling tools and heavy buckets. But she didn't allow herself to dwell on pain. Instead, she drank water slowly, letting the cool liquid refresh her, and watched the ranch around her. Horses grazed calmly, cattle moved in small herds, and the wind carried the faint scent of dry earth and hay. It was hard work, but it was honest work, and for the first time in a long time she felt like she belonged somewhere, even if only temporarily. The rancher approached and handed her a piece of bread. She took it gratefully, breaking it in half and savoring the simple meal. Bess, you're working hard, he said. Most people would have given up by now. Why do you keep going? She paused, considering her answer. Because I have no other choice.
And because I've been through worse. I know that if I stop, nothing will get better.
Best.
I have to keep moving forward no matter how hard it gets. The rancher nodded, impressed by her resilience.
It was rare to see someone with so little yet so much determination. Later that afternoon, the rancher asked her to help with a small accident. A frightened horse had kicked over a bucket and injured its leg. Many would have been too scared to approach, but she didn't hesitate. She calmed the horse with soft words and careful movements, following the rancher's instructions to clean the wound and bandage it. Her steady hands and calm presence helped the horse relax. And by the time they were done, it was clear that she had earned the animal's trust. The rancher watched quietly, a faint smile on his lips. You handled that well, he said. Most people would have panicked.
You stayed calm and focused. That's valuable here.
She nodded, hiding her pride behind a simple smile. The work was never about praise for her. It was about survival and about proving to herself that she could endure even in the toughest conditions. As evening approached, the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the ranch. The sky turned shades of pink and purple, and the desert wind cooled slightly. She had finished all the tasks for the day, from feeding the animals to repairing fences and cleaning the stables. Her body was exhausted, but her spirit felt stronger than ever. The rancher approached again, this time with a small gesture that spoke more than words could. He handed her a small tin plate with a hot meal, beans, bread, and a bit of roasted meat. She accepted it with a quiet nod, savoring the warmth and nourishment. For the first time in days, she felt her body truly rest as she ate. You did well today, the rancher said finally, looking her in the eye.
Not just the work, but the way you handled yourself. That matters more than you realize. She looked up at him, tired but grateful. Despair. Thank you, sir. That means a lot. I just want to survive and do what I can. I don't want to be a burden.
You're not a burden, he replied. Not here. If you keep this up, you'll earn your place.
Not everyone gets a chance like this, and not everyone deserves it. You do. The words, simple as they were, filled her with quiet hope. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible, bare. She didn't feel like just another traveler passing through the harsh desert. She felt like someone who mattered, someone capable of making a difference, even in small ways. That night, she settled into the corner of the barn again. The hay was soft enough, the air quiet enough, and for the first time in weeks, she felt safe. The rancher didn't intrude, giving her space to rest, but his presence nearby gave her a sense of security. She lay down reflecting on the day, the work she had done, the animals she had cared for, and the small steps she had taken toward rebuilding her life. She thought about the challenges ahead. The ranch was large, and the work never ended. Tomorrow would bring new tasks, new tests of endurance and patience. But she felt ready. She had survived today, and that meant she could survive tomorrow. Outside, the desert sky was dark, stars twinkling faintly above. The wind whispered softly through the trees, carrying the scent of dry earth and distant mountains.
She closed her eyes, listening to the quiet sounds of the ranch, the soft breathing of the horses, the rustle of hay, the faint creak of a gate swinging in the wind.
It was a simple life, but it was honest, and it was a life she could build. Somewhere deep inside, she knew that this was just the beginning. The road had been long, and it was far from over, but she had found a place where she could stand on her own 2 feet, where her strength and determination mattered, and where she could begin to heal from the hardships of her past. Bayes. With that thought, she drifted into a tired but peaceful sleep, ready to face the next day with the same courage and determination that had carried her this far. She only had $3, a small bag, and a world of uncertainty ahead. But she also had something far more powerful, the will to keep going, no matter what challenges came her way. And in the quiet desert night, that was enough. The sun rose again over the ranch, casting a golden light across the dusty fields and wooden fences. The Apache woman awoke before dawn, her muscles sore but her spirit steady. Each day brought new challenges, and each day she met them with quiet determination. She had learned the rhythm of the ranch, when to feed the animals, when to clean the stalls, and when the horses needed careful attention. Life here was hard, but it was honest, and for the first time in weeks, she felt like she belonged. The rancher had already started his morning rounds, checking fences and inspecting the animals. He noticed her moving quietly but efficiently, carrying buckets and checking each stall. He gave her a small nod of acknowledgement, which she returned respectfully. There was no need for words yet. The work itself spoke volumes about her dedication. The morning seemed ordinary at first. She cleaned the stables, fed the horses, and prepared water for the livestock. The rancher watched as she handled each task with careful precision. Her hands were blistered and worn, but she didn't complain. Other ranch hands began to respect her quietly, noticing the same qualities he did: patience, determination, and a willingness to work hard without complaint. Then the unexpected happened. A sudden commotion erupted near the back of the ranch. A young foal had wandered too close to the edge of a small cliff that bordered the property. The foal slipped slightly on the loose soil and began to stumble dangerously. The mother horse whinnied in panic, rearing and stamping her hooves. Dust swirled into the air as the animals struggled,
and the rancher's heart skipped a beat. Best. The Apache woman saw the danger immediately. Without hesitation, she grabbed a rope from the nearby post and ran toward the fall, her boots kicking up clouds of dust. The rancher called after her, warning her to be careful, but she didn't slow down. Her eyes were focused, and her hands were steady. She spoke softly to the foal, trying to calm it while keeping the rope ready to secure it. The ground was uneven and loose, and every step she took was dangerous. The wind carried a swirl of dust into her eyes, but she didn't stop. She kept moving forward, inch by inch, until she could reach the foal. With careful hands, she looped the rope around its small body and slowly guided it away from the cliff's edge. The foal resisted at first, frightened and slipping on the loose soil, but her steady voice and gentle touch reassured it. Meanwhile, the rancher and his men arrived, helping to stabilize the mother horse and ensuring the foal didn't panic further. Together, they guided the foal to safety. The Apache woman stood back for a moment, breathing hard, her hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline, but she didn't falter. The rancher looked at her with a mixture of relief and admiration. "That was brave," he said simply. "Most people would have frozen or run the other way." "I couldn't just stand there," she replied, her voice calm despite the rapid beating of her heart. "The foal needed help. I had to do something." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of activity. The foal and mother horse were checked carefully for injuries, and the rancher instructed everyone to repair the area near the cliff to prevent future accidents. The Apache woman continued with her chores, but her mind lingered on the incident base. She felt a quiet pride in her actions, but also a sense of responsibility. She knew that being on the ranch meant more than just feeding animals and cleaning stalls. It meant being vigilant, prepared, and willing to step up when danger arose. After the immediate crisis passed, the rancher approached her again, his face thoughtful. "You've proven today that you're more than just a hard worker," he said. "You've got courage and presence of mind. That counts for a lot here."
How long have you been through situations like this?
She hesitated briefly, remembering the fires, the long walks through harsh lands, and the countless times she had faced danger in her life. "I've had to survive on my own for years," she admitted quietly.
"I've seen things I hope no one else has to see. But I've also learned that staying calm and thinking clearly can save lives. Not just mine, but others too." The rancher nodded, understanding more about the strength that lay behind her calm exterior. There was a depth to her resilience that couldn't be measured by hours worked or tasks completed. It came from experience, from facing hardship and refusing to give up. By this woman who had arrived with only $3 in a small bag had more courage in her than many people he had known all their lives. Later in the afternoon, another challenge emerged. A sudden summer storm rolled in from the mountains, dark clouds gathering quickly over the ranch. The wind picked up, rattling gates and whipping dust into the air. Rain fell in heavy sheets, turning the dry earth into thick mud. The animals grew restless, and the ranch hands scrambled to secure everything. The Apache woman didn't hesitate. She moved quickly, helping to tie down loose equipment, secure the animals, and cover feed and supplies. Her knowledge of survival skills, learned from years of living in harsh conditions, became invaluable. She stayed calm in the chaos, giving clear instructions and assisting others when needed. Even the rancher found himself relying on her guidance, trusting her instincts in a situation where quick thinking was essential. Hours passed, and by the time the storm subsided, the ranch was intact. The animals were safe, the fences held firm, and the equipment was secured. The rancher surveyed the scene, feeling a quiet sense of relief. He turned to the Apache woman, who was soaked from head to toe but still standing tall, her face streaked with rain and mud. "You did well today," he said, his voice filled with respect.
I've seen many people work hard, but few have the courage and quick thinking you've shown. You're more than just a worker here. It's best. You're part of the ranch. She nodded, a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction on her face.
I just did what needed to be done, she replied softly.
I couldn't just watch everything fall apart. That evening, as the sun began to set and the storm clouds cleared, the Apache woman sat quietly near the barn, drying off and tending to her own small wounds from the day's work. She reflected on everything that had happened. The foal, the storm, the trust she had earned from the rancher and his men. It was more than just work. It was recognition of her abilities, her courage, and her determination. The rancher approached again, this time with a small gesture of kindness. He handed her a warm meal, bread and roasted vegetables, and some fresh water. She accepted it gratefully, taking small bites and savoring the warmth and nourishment. "You've earned your place here," he said finally, Britt. "Not everyone gets the chance, and not everyone deserves it. But you do. You've shown that you can handle whatever comes your way, and that counts for a lot." For the first time, she allowed herself to truly feel pride. It wasn't about the money or the tasks completed. It was about respect, trust, and recognition. But she had arrived at the ranch with almost nothing, yet she had proven that she belonged. She wasn't just surviving. She was becoming part of something bigger than herself. That night, as she lay in her corner of the barn, listening to the soft breathing of the animals and the gentle creaking of the barn doors, she thought about the road that had brought her here. Breaths, the fires, the long travels, the uncertainty. It all felt distant now, replaced by a sense of purpose and belonging. She closed her eyes, feeling exhausted but fulfilled. She knew that challenges would continue to come, that life on the ranch was not easy, and that every day would test her in new ways. But she also knew that she had the courage, skill, and determination to face whatever came next. She had survived storms, danger, and hardship before. She could survive them again. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the animals she had cared for and the ranch she had helped protect, she felt a deep sense of peace. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't just surviving. She was living. The Apache woman drifted off to sleep, her mind calm despite the long day. Outside, the stars began to twinkle over the desert sky, and the ranch stood quietly in the night, secure and strong. She had faced danger, proven herself, and earned the trust of those around her. The future was still uncertain, but she had learned that she could handle whatever came her way. Tomorrow would bring new tasks, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove herself. But for now, she rested, knowing that she had made it through another day with courage, resilience, and strength. She had arrived with only $3, a small bag, and a will to survive. Now she had much more: respect, trust, and a place where she truly belonged. And in the quiet desert night, that was everything. The next morning, the desert sun rose slowly, spilling soft golden light over the ranch.
The Apache woman woke early, as she had every day since she arrived. Her body ached from the previous day's work, but this morning her heart felt lighter.
Yes.
She had survived storms, danger, and exhausting labor, and she had proven herself. She was no longer just a dusty stranger with $3 to her name.
She was a part of the ranch, and for the first time in a long time she felt a sense of belonging. The rancher was already outside, checking fences and inspecting the animals. He noticed her walking toward him, carrying a bucket with fresh water for the horses. He gave her a small nod, one that had become a kind of daily acknowledgement between them. It was quiet, simple, but it carried respect. She returned the nod with a faint smile, her confidence growing with each passing day. Today, she was tasked with organizing the feed for the animals, cleaning the stables, and helping with minor repairs. She worked steadily, moving from task to task without complaint. The rancher and his men observed her quietly, noting how her presence had changed the energy of the ranch. Where there had been skepticism and hesitation when she first arrived, there was now a sense of trust and reliability. She had proven herself not only with her labor but with her courage, her patience, and her dedication. By mid-morning, she had completed several tasks and was moving toward the barn to check on the horses when she noticed the rancher walking toward her with a thoughtful expression. He carried a small envelope in his hand. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, stopping a few feet away. "You've been here a while now, and you've shown courage, determination, and respect for this place. I want to offer you something more permanent." Permanent? She asked softly, unsure she had heard correctly. "Yes," the rancher replied. "I know you've come with almost nothing, but I want you to stay here.
A place to live, food to eat, and work that matters. You've earned it, and I think this ranch could use someone like you."
Burris. Her eyes widened, and for a moment she didn't speak. She had been dreaming of stability and safety for so long that the idea almost felt unreal. But she had faced fire, hunger, and loneliness, and now someone was offering her a home, not as a favor, but because she had truly earned it. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "I came here with only $3 asking for work, and now you're offering me a home." The rancher nodded. "You've earned it, not because of money or connections, but because of who you are. Your courage, your skill, your determination, that's what matters here. You've proven yourself in ways most people never do." Best. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them back. She had been through so much loss that allowing herself to feel gratitude fully was difficult. Yet in this moment, she allowed herself a small, quiet smile. She felt hope for the first time in a long while.
Over the next few days, she settled into her new routine. The rancher arranged a small room in the barn for her, simple but comfortable, with a cot, a blanket, and a few personal touches to make it feel like her own space. She unpacked her small bag and placed her few belongings neatly on a shelf. Though humble, the room felt like a sanctuary. She had a place to rest, a space she could call her own, and the security of knowing she had a home. Work on the ranch continued as usual, but now she moved with confidence. She cared for the animals, repaired fences, and helped organize the day-to-day operations with a sense of pride. The rancher and his men treated her as one of their own, no longer a stranger who had wandered in with $3, but a valuable member of the ranch community. One afternoon, as she was feeding the horses, the rancher approached and asked if she wanted to join him for a short break. They sat under the shade of a large oak tree, watching the animals graze and listening to the soft wind rustle through the leaves.
"You've changed things here," he said, his voice calm but sincere. "When you first arrived, I wasn't sure how long you'd last.
But now, you've made this place better. Inspiration. Not just with your work, but with your presence. You've brought a sense of reliability and calm that we didn't even know we needed."
Grasp. She looked at him, touched by his words. "I never imagined I'd find a place like this," she admitted.
I've traveled so far, faced so many challenges, and I always thought I was alone. But here,
It feels like I belong.
you do belong. You've earned it every step of the way, and I'm glad you stayed. As the days turned into weeks, the Apache woman continued to grow in confidence and skill. She learned more about the ranch than she had in her first weeks. She could anticipate the horses' moods, repair fences quickly and correctly, and help the rancher plan for the coming seasons. Her connection with the animals grew stronger, and even the most stubborn horses began to respond to her calm voice and gentle hands. The rancher occasionally watched her from a distance, feeling a quiet sense of pride. He had seen many people try to survive in harsh conditions, but few had the strength, courage, and patience she possessed. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. She had transformed from a dusty, weary traveler into someone who had a place, a purpose, and respect. One evening, after a long day of work, she sat outside her small room watching the sun set over the horizon. The sky was painted in deep oranges and purples, and the desert stretched endlessly in every direction. She reflected on her journey, the fire that had taken her home, the long travels with only $3, the exhaustion, the danger, and the moments of fear, and she realized that every step had led her here. Every hardship, every challenge had prepared her for this new life. She thought about the rancher and the trust he had shown her. She thought about the animals who had come to rely on her care and attention. And she thought about herself, the strength she had found, the courage she had demonstrated, and the sense of belonging she had earned. That night she fell asleep with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. She was safe, she was valued, and she had a place to call home. The desert night was quiet, the stars twinkling above, and the ranch stood firm and strong around her. Over time, her life on the ranch became a rhythm of work, care, and quiet reflection. She learned to anticipate the needs of the animals and the demands of the land. She repaired fences, organized feed, and even helped the rancher plan for the future. Her presence brought stability, and the rancher began to rely on her not just for labor, but for judgment and wisdom. Her story began to spread quietly among the ranch hands and neighbors. They admired her resilience, her courage, and her willingness to work hard without complaint. She had arrived with almost nothing, yet she had proven that determination, honesty, and skill were more valuable than money or status. One morning the rancher approached her with a small gift, a sturdy new pair of boots. "For all the work you've done," he said, smiling. "You've earned them. You've earned a place here, and these are just a small way of showing that." She accepted them gratefully, feeling a warmth in her chest. It wasn't the boots themselves, but the recognition, the gesture, and the acknowledgement of her hard work. She had come with only $3, but now she had something far greater: trust, respect, and a future she could shape. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The Apache woman continued to thrive on the ranch. She had found her place, her purpose, and her peace. Life was still demanding, but it was rewarding. Desperate animal. Every task she completed, every animal she cared for, and every fence she repaired reinforced her sense of belonging. One evening, as she stood on a small rise overlooking the ranch, she took a deep breath of the cool desert air. The sky was a brilliant tapestry of colors, and the land stretched endlessly before her. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the hardships, the loss, and the determination that had carried her forward. She realized that she had survived not just because of skill or luck, but because she had refused to give up. The rancher joined her silently, standing beside her as they both looked over the land. "You've done well," he said quietly. "More than I could have expected." "You've earned your place here, and I'm glad you stayed." She smiled softly. "I've learned that it's not just about surviving," she replied. "It's about finding where you belong and what you can give to the world when you do." The rancher nodded, understanding the truth in her words. Together they watched the sun dip below the horizon, the desert glowing in the last light of day. The Apache woman knew that her journey was far from over. But she also knew that she was ready. She had a home, a purpose, and a place where she truly belonged. And in the quiet of the desert night, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real hope. Not the kind that faded with the wind, but the kind that took root in the heart, steady and enduring. She had arrived with only $3, a small bag, and a will to survive. Now she had so much more: a home, respect, trust, and the promise of a future she could build with her own hands. She smiled to herself, feeling a deep sense of contentment.
The ranch, the animals, and the people she had come to care for surrounded her with a quiet strength.
She was no longer alone. She had found a place where she mattered, where she could grow, and where she could finally rest without fear. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to dream.